Turn your microphone back on. I would look for a motion to return from executive session.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Bell, second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. I would look for a motion to authorize Attorney Bertram the authority as discussed.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bedell, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, sir. We do not have an attorney's report this evening, so we'll hop right into administrative reports. Ms. Borges, Acting Superintendent.
So as we approach the close of 2024, I'm happy to share some highlights from our December activities, which underscore the dedication and collaboration within the Stratford Public Schools. This season has been really rich with community engagement. I had the pleasure of attending the Rotary Holiday Party, in which over 20 of our elementary students were greeted with a wonderful lunch and gifts and a visit from Santa. What made that party extra special for me this year is that our students at Strive, who you know are in our transition program and are working on their work skills, are the ones who went shopping and wrapped gifts and were able to deliver them, and it was a meaningful job for them and a meaningful experience for the kids. On the innovation front, the AI task force continues to make meaningful strides. This month, the team focused on crafting actionable strategies around communication, policy development, and professional learning. These efforts are laying the foundation so that we can make a thoughtful impact of the integration of AI in our classrooms and in our district. And as you heard earlier from the students, December has been filled with powerful student experiences. I tried to share some pictures from the Pearl Harbor visit, and some other pictures of the magnets and other things that our district has really engaged in. These tireless efforts of our educators to provide enriching opportunities for our students are why we do our jobs. Turning to the operational updates, you asked last month for residency update. Residency case management has remained a priority. Since the start of the school year, we have addressed 23 residency cases. Of these, 12 have been confirmed, 8 remain under review, 3 were denied accommodations, and these are a result of our commitment to ensure residency compliance, maintaining equity within our district. On a really positive note, we are ending this year, and I thought it would be important for us to address chronic absenteeism and to see where we're at currently. Over the past 3 years, we have seen a remarkable improvement in our attendance rates. In 22-23, if you remember, our rate was 28.37% chronically absent. Last year, we dropped down to 19.55% chronic absenteeism, and right now, we are at 16.6%, which is a credit to the collaborative efforts of our family and community engagement specialists, our building teams, our LEAP work, our Project Uplift initiatives, and most importantly, our partnerships with our families. Together, we are ensuring that our students are present, engaged, and ready to learn. We are hoping that number continues to go down, but very pleased with the work that this district has done around chronic absenteeism. December has been a critical month for budget preparation. District leadership has been thoroughly reviewing our status quo budget while evaluating new initiatives to ensure alignment with our strategic priorities. These efforts will culminate in the February budget presentation, where we will outline our vision for resource allocations that support both student success and district growth. And finally, as this is our last meeting before the holiday break, I want to take a moment to extend my warmest wishes to each of you. Whether you are celebrating Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, or simply spending time with loved ones, may this season bring you peace, joy, and renewal. And I want to thank you for your unwavering dedication and support to Stratford as a community and to me in this role as acting superintendent. I look forward to continuing our shared mission in the new year.
Any questions for Ms. Borges? No? We'll move on to Ms. Mangini, the Chief Operating Officer.
Yes, good evening. As Ms. Borges noted, we have been immersed in the fiscal year 26 budget development process, and we're also working towards completing the capital budget. Both will be submitted to the board in early 2025. And in keeping with just more of an upbeat report this evening with the holiday season, I just wanted to comment on a couple of personal things that I am involved in, and they both keep Stratford in the local and national spotlight. I will be facilitating another workshop for CASBO, which is the Connecticut Association of School Business Officials, and that will be on grant management processes in January. The Connecticut group is really great at supporting one another, and quite honestly, I don't think I could have survived this position for the last 20 years without that organization. So I always welcome opportunities to give back. In addition, I am chair of the ASBO International's SFO Commission. ASBO is the Association of School Business Officials nationally, and I am part of the annual commission and nominating process. And just for context, the SFO is the Certified Administrator of School Finance and Operations designation, similar to a CPA type designation. And it is a prestigious credential earned through a rigorous 2-part exam demonstrating expertise in various aspects of school financial and operational management. I was one of the first in the state about a dozen years ago to earn that designation, but since then we have had so many school business officials in the state actually pass the exam. I have done some workshops in helping people prepare, but it's really very rewarding to see people in my profession continue to do professional development and grow in those areas. So these engagements with both organizations help me stay informed about the latest developments in education, and they really do help me to support the district. So just thought I'd share some positive news with you.
And I think during the finance committee, you had given us a grants report.
I did.
I don't know if Mr. O'Brien, you had anything you wanted to add?
Oh, they have a few checks to go present.
Well, here's your chance.
And I'm speaking now as a representative of the Stratford Community Fund, which was formed in 1990 by members of Stratford Rotary, which actually donated $250 to help that program you talked about. And unfortunately, after 34 years, it's dissolving. So over $10,000 is being donated to various nonprofits and to the schools. And the rest of the money will go to Rotary, which hopefully will continue the high school scholarships that we give out, the post-prom awards, and those sort of things. But tonight, I have a couple checks to present to, I guess to you, Pam.
Sounds good.
One is $1,000 for continuing ed scholarships, since we've learned at their graduation last year they don't give any, so we'd like them to get some. And I think it's $500 for unified sports.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
And then Jack Delapiano, as long as you're here, if you'd like to come up, I've got checks here for the post-prom and for to continue the Stratford Community Fund $500 scholarship each year.
Thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it. You want to strap it out, but I know you'll take Manel too. Anybody going to Manel tomorrow? Same thing, it's $250 for the post-prom and $500 for the scholarship. Okay, thanks. I love giving money away.
We love taking it.
Thank you so much for thinking of all of that, Mr. Ryan, and thank you for attending the continuing ed graduation, and just for remembering that it's important to recognize the students that are graduating there as well. So
I
thank
wish
you.
we had 200,000.
Me too.
Give you for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any questions for Ms. Mangini? I think you're done for the evening, so if you'd like to leave, you can stay, but. And then we will move on to our teaching and learning, and I believe that's Ms. Diorio.
Yes, my turn. Good evening, everyone, and on behalf of the Teaching and Learning Department, we do want to begin by wishing everyone a happy holiday season, and thank you for your support as our success is with the help of your partnership and commitment to this school district, and we appreciate it. We're starting with elementary. We continue our school visits, actually all of us, Dr. Piazza, Ms. Borges, Ms. Brown comes around a lot, myself, for various purposes, visiting all the schools, being much more visible this year than previously, so we're definitely making an attempt. And we continue to check in on new staff hires, and other purposes, portrait of a graduate, But for elementary, Hilford Literacy is just about finished with its first coaching session at each school and at each grade level. They've met with the Hilford Literacy, which I've been participating in. It's new learning, which is amazing for all of the staff members. We've gotten positive feedback on it. As explained in our curriculum committee meeting, we partnered with Hilford Literacy to support our Science of Reading training for all of our staff members teaching literacy. This partnership includes coaching to help teachers understand, synthesize, and apply the new learning within the framework of our new literacy program. So it's been very beneficial. And our Stratford Literacy Coherence Map outlines the comprehensive support provided to our teachers, which is including the training in research-based instructional practices and guidance for effective implementation. Additionally, this initiative incorporates district-wide grade-level data teams to ensure consistency in instructional practices and student outcome across all of grades K to 6 classrooms. We are making significant progress toward establishing a cohesive and aligned literacy process that's consistent throughout the district. Also, for elementary, we are beginning working on curriculum writing in the new year, and this will be in the areas of literacy, social studies, and health. For the secondary update, Stratford Public Schools recently hosted a peer learning community visit from Franklin, New Hampshire, as part of our collaboration with the Barr Foundation and the Portrait of a Graduate initiative. This visit focused on reflective walkthroughs at Bunnell and Stratford High School, where educators analyzed instructional practices and alignment with the district's theory of change. This theory emphasizes that investing in the professional development for high-quality task design, student work analysis, and effective instructional practices equips educators to foster student independence, agency, and mastery of the competencies. Key observations included evidence of student engagement, alignment to standards, emerging practices promoting student agency alongside opportunities to enhance task rigor and differentiation strategies. Our team will be visiting Franklin, New Hampshire in February to repeat this process, and both school districts will continue to help each other achieve their established goals. Simultaneously, Stratford is finalizing its high school program of studies to continue to offer a variety of academic and elective opportunities for students. Collaborative efforts with department heads, school counselors, and administrators have resulted in updates to course descriptions, new course proposals, and streamlining pathways for students' progression. Focus areas include increasing access for all students to advanced placement, early college and career, and technical education offerings. The next steps involve making final adjustments and sharing the updated program of studies to support confident course selections for the 2024 and 26 school year. These initiatives reflect Stratford's commitment to providing high-quality, engaging, and student-centered educational experiences. As a district, our team teachers, which are our new teachers, education and mentoring program, just went through Module 5, which reviews the Connecticut Code of Professional Responsibility for Educators. We, our team coordinating committee, engaged in scenario reviews, fostering rich discussions and meaningful reflections on professional ethics and responsibilities. It was a great discussion. And finally, we have a ton of events happening at schools, from Chapel's STEAM Night to Second Hill Lane had an art family night recently. Johnson House had Literacy Health from the state come and work with our families, teaching them literacy skills that they can do at home. And of course, all the holiday concerts that you've heard about. It's been wonderful. So it has been a busy place in our department. And we thank you and everyone for their commitment to our students and wish them and you a wonderful holiday season.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. With the Hilford Learning, that is just giving our staff teachers the tools to implement the new reading curriculum. Have you seen an impact in our reading scores and our students?
So there's there's different components. They're working with the teachers a couple of years now, we've been learning the science of reading and turnkeying, and not everyone got direct instruction on it. So this year we brought modules to every single teacher teaching literacy in elementary. So they're trained with the modules, then they have coaches come in and actually teach them how to work on what they learned from the modules and implementing it with the new literacy program. So if it's not the literacy program here, the science of reading here, they're learning how to mesh it together. On top of that, we have data teams, which are teaching us how to, go through a data team the right way and consistently, so that if data teams at Nichols are gonna look like data teams at Lordship. So they're walking us through that. I would say end of January, hopefully for the end of January, if not February for sure, when those progress monitoring scores come in, we can definitely look at that. But I know the teachers are all very positive on how it's helping them to, teach, so it's gotta be a positive impact.
So are you seeing, I mean, you might not be the place to say it, but are you seeing growth within the student body?
Yeah, I mean, from what the grade levels are sharing at their data teams, yeah, and we're all using a consistent tool now to look at that. Yeah. But I will have data either next month or the next.
All right, thank you. And again, I think you guys are done, so you're welcome to stay, but I look for a motion to acceptance of the meeting minutes for the November 25, 2024 regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. O'Brien, second by Ms. Padel. Any discussion?
I'd just like to bring up that Mr. Piazza presented last meeting. It says he wasn't in attendance, so if we could correct that in the minutes.
So motion to amend the meetings to include Mr. Piazza. Is there any other discussion?
Just a few other.
Okay, so let's get a motion to, well, I don't know if we need it.
In the minutes on page 11, it mentions in this B number 2, the Franklin Flex Zone, it mentions that the motion was seconded, but it didn't mention that the motion was made by Mr. Cormier. I didn't know if that needed to be added, because it mentions who seconded. Same thing with in C2, the motion had been made by myself. That wasn't mentioned, but it mentions being seconded. And then in the third part of 3, roll call votes in order of proposal, there's no mention of the motion that I made to grant students with IEPs and 504s the ability to apply for a waiver and a vote on that.
Okay. Can you got all that, Teresa?
I did.
All right, so I look for a motion to amend the minutes as discussed by Ms. Carol Fabian and Ms. D'Angelo Powers. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. So then I would look for a motion to approve the amended minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Carol Fabian,
Second.
second by Ms. D'Angelo Powers. Any discussion on the amended minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving down to items for action discussion. Look for a motion to approve the personnel assignments, classifications, resignations. Moved by Ms. Padel, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. There were no budget transfers, so we will turn it over to Ms. Rosenberg.
I think it's remove it from the table first.
Which?
It's tabled last.
Oh, but it's also as a piece
It's
of
also as a
an action item? It's ahead of it, but,
Okay.
well, just for clarification, we will, motion to take, on table item CT discussion Samantha Rosenberg off the
So
table.
moved.
Moved by Mr. Cormier,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. So, under table items, the CT discussion will be taken off the table, and the floor will be opened up to Ms. Rosenberg.
Great, is this on? Great, thanks. First, I want to, again, say thank you to Mr. Henrik and the board for allowing me to present this information. Again, about our CTE programs, as I shared at the curriculum committee meeting, that this our whole program is really near and dear to my heart as somebody who transitioned into education from the financial industry as well as having family within the technical field. So thank you again. Thanks. So this is just outlining once again our mission of the department. And I do want to just kind of emphasize that we want to offer dynamic courses. We want hands-on experiences for our students and access to valuable community resources because we are, just like the Portrait of a Graduate says, we are trying to develop and foster critical thinking, technical expertise, and professional readiness. And I'm going to do a very abbreviated version because I, again, appreciate the 40 minutes that we spent on this at the curriculum committee, so I'll try to run through this as fast.
We had some time, so.
Okay.
I mean, so not all the board members were here and the public is seeing it as well, so
Great.
if you want to get a little more details, please do.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
It'll be helpful to us all.
The first slide is pretty much just to provide you some context here. These are the projected projected growth rate, that is taken from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and Connecticut Department of Labor. And this basically states, by the year 2031, this is how quick these particular professions are growing, specific to the state of Connecticut. Next slide, then we take a little deeper dive into what does that look like in Stratford. So here, Stratford, these are our top career paths that are projected for the town. And as you'll notice, we have healthcare up there. They're projected to grow at least 20%, and some of the rationale would be the increased healthcare demands to our aging population, as well as our community is growing. We also have the professional, scientific, and technical services, which are projected to grow about 17%. Again, high demand for IT, cybersecurity, data and analytics services, and just like Ms. Borges said, AI is a big topic now. So we're going to need those very highly skilled workers out in the field soon. And this kind of supports, in general, the need for our regional tech and manufacturing sectors in town too. The third highest projected growth would be the manufacturing, aerospace, and advanced manufacturing, about 12%. So Stratford, obviously, we all know, hosts one of our big industry players here, which is Sikorsky. So we're creating a steady demand for manufacturing roles and technical expertise here. Next one, excuse me, would be the educational services. As we know, there has been a national teacher shortage crisis, and that still impacts Connecticut. The Northeast may not feel as heavy as the other states do, but we are projected to see that there needs to be about 10% growth. And again, the emphasis on the educational infrastructure and so on. And then lastly, construction is about 11%. The infrastructure projects and housing developments in Fairfield County are demanding for these particular construction labor in Stratford. And I know that's a topic near and dear to your heart, Mr. Henrik. So the next slide is just a comparative of out of the pathways that are state identified. On your left is what we currently offer, and we offer 11 out of the 12 career pathways. Just recently, the end of October, the National Association have redeveloped frameworks, and so they're changing a few things around, streamlining it a bit more. Some of the things you'll notice specifically is that on the current side, you'll see that the STEM pathway exists currently, but they have argued that STEM skills should be across all these pathways, and therefore they're not completely eliminating it, but they are streamlining it. So you'll see that we have advanced manufacturing, construction, supply chain and transportation, arts and entertainment and design is new, and they've added in hospitality the events portion because they realize that that's a particular skill set that you have to have. Along with the tourism. Financial services, education, healthcare, human services are still in there. Public service and safety is another one. And then we have agriculture, energy, natural resources. That speaks to the previous slide that I had up, which shows how much is going to be growing within that specific sector there. And then marketing and sales and management and entrepreneurship, which is typically part of the business pathway. They've basically separated those two. So we have a lot of work in coming up in ensuring that our curriculum is up to date with these frameworks, just like any of our standards that come down from the national to the state level. The state is currently reviewing the frameworks right now before adoption, and once they make the adoption, we'll have to figure out a plan moving forward to ensure that our offerings are aligned. This next one just identifies some of the courses that we have, which we did previously receive a dual enrollment grant to help us in curating and offer more high impact courses. These are very skills specialized courses. And it offers our kids a significant advantage. So some of the things that you might know is that, you know, they're gonna save money, you know, for college, but they're also gonna be set up for kind of the practical advantage, the skills that they need moving forward in their careers. So these are just some of our offerings currently, and we're continuously trying to build on that as well. With regards to the accountability system, most of you are very familiar with the indicators here, and we do place a high emphasis on ELA and math. But in alignment with CTE, we do look at indicators 5 and 6, 5 being the number of courses students take, especially within our pathways, and then 6 being whether or not they're able to pass the exams. And one of those exams would be your SAT, your APs. So this is just our little report card, basically. Next slide shows exactly where we are. So on the left side is where the state is. Indicator 5 is in blue, 6 is in orange. We do a really, really good job in curating interests of students going into our courses. They want to be in there. We have wait lists, as we discussed at the curriculum committee. What we do need to work on is getting the students to pass like our AP courses, or at least reaching the benchmark that is acceptable. However, we're not that far off from the state, as you can see, but that's something we're striving to continuously do. And then we did go over some highlights for the past few years. You know, we want to give a little shout out to Worcester. They were recognized as a PLTW Gateway Distinguished School. We're working on flood, and as I mentioned at the curriculum committee, it's not that flood isn't on there, but when we submitted the application, the teacher was fairly new, so there's some criterias that speak to the level of understanding within the application. So hopefully, knock on wood, next year flood is going to be up there. And you know, we're always looking for resources that are culturally responsive, and I do just, when you get a chance, if you want to read, I linked it up there, but our, especially our Bonnell culinary program was recognized in one of the international cookbook companies, if you will. So that's really something that I'm really proud of for us all. And then we consistently offer CTSOs, which are the student organizations, every single year. And I want to just kind of point your eyes to the National Technical Honor Society. Out of that, what we've done really well is that we've offered the Girls in STEM program as well, specifically to Bonnell.
Can you tell us what those abbreviations all are?
Sure, it's Future Business Leaders Association. The DECA one is the Economics Association. HOSA is specific to the allied health, that's health occupations. And then, like I said, the National Technical Honor Society there. And those, I highlighted these specifically because we have teachers who are committed to ensuring that these programs are offered after school. These are after school programs that are extending the learning, the community involvement. They get to put things into application. And then out of, for example, out of FBLA and DECA, we were able to launch our Bulldog Business. It's an entrepreneurship program. So if you've gone to some of their events, it is, I mean, you can kind of consider it as a school store, but it took a lot of planning that went into this, and then they were able to at least launch it a couple years ago. Go Baby Go, I did present that to, I sent a video, hopefully you had a chance to look at it. Again, this is, what happens just quickly is that we take the preschool toy cars that some of your younger children might have had, and then the students within our manufacturing and engineering classes, they then basically put it together and ensure that that they adapt it to our special needs 3 and 4 year olds, and then we donate it. So this is, again, the kids are currently working on our new set of cars right now, and so hopefully in the spring we'll have another donation night for you to come and join us. Again, 23-24, when Stratford High was built, Mr. Delapiano could speak to this as well. They built it nicely so that we'd have a room that's a classroom, but we also have a room that looks exactly like a preschool, and we dedicated that to Victoria Soto. So we have a lab, a learning lab for our education pathway students to actually apply some of those skills with actual humans in the room, 3 and 4-year-olds. So right now we have about 5 3 and 4-year-olds that come to us 3 days a week from 9 to 2, and we get to develop lessons and teach those lessons to our little ones. So we're really excited that that was able to be opened last year. Really proud of our CNA program. 85% pass rate is exceptional. It's been very consistent each year. We've gone through some staffing changes, but we've consistently been able to at least have 85% of the students that are within the program pass the exam. And I want to stress again that 85 is the only number I'm able to obtain, because a lot of times the students are not able to at least pass a certain section of the CNA test. They have to wait a little while before they can re-register to take it again. And a lot of times, because it's taking at the end of the year, our students have graduated, so therefore I don't have that data. But I do have kids will call me after and say, can I come back and retake the test on site at Stratford High versus having to go through the Prometrics, their locations across the state, which is pretty inconvenient at times because they don't have them very frequently here. And then again, AP Computer Science, we're really proud of the fact that we were able to increase participation and interest for our female students who want to get into the field. And then 2 years in a row, we were able to place top 3 in our stock market challenge competition, which is typically held at University of Bridgeport. So there's some sort of highlights that I just want to, our kids are continuously doing a lot with this, with what we have. With that, we do have some challenges, I will say. Last year, Arlene Gottesman did submit some enrollment numbers. And this is, like I said, it's a good problem to have. We have students who are interested in our various pathways. We have waiting rooms and waiting lists to get into them. So we need to figure out a solution for that. The other item are our resources. We have some outdated equipment, and specifically speaking to Bunnell High School, the facility is not always conducive to what, all the skills that we need to learn. But they make it work, so shout out to Bunnell. But I think at this point we need to consider, looking at our facilities and ensuring that we have the most relevant and updated areas to learn from. There was some limited staffing, and that's because of the certification requirements, so we'd like to do some early recruitment and so forth, and some budget constraints there. We're working on the access and equity part. Like I said, we have been acknowledged for increasing the female participation rate, but we need to reach more of our demographic and just encourage them to get into specific pathways. I'm also proud of the CNA program in that they were able to have at least 3 to 4 males each year participating. So that's another highlight too. And this is an ongoing challenge because industry is not waiting for us. They are going to continue to grow. Industry will demand for us to continuously upgrade our systems, our work area, and our kids need to be prepared for the workforce when they leave here. So out of that, we do have some wish lists for the future. This offers, again, some of the things from the data that we'd like to at least look into a new pathway based on market trends. As I said earlier, aerospace and ROTC, we do have a high population of military here that are very supportive. I've had the pleasure of meeting them every year, especially at the Bunnell Veterans Day breakfast, as well as Stratford High School. We do need to continue working on our integration with the community colleges and industry certification. Certain pathways do not have industry certification right away, so we're continuously working on that. We want to expand our middle school offerings. We do have a course that's called the Career Development course that we offer in the 9th grade. However, based on conversations recently with the state, they think that this is a good opportunity for us to bring that course down to the 8th grade level and allow, early awareness of options moving forward. So that's something we want to work towards. Again, technology, going back to facilities and tools. 4 of our classrooms have really outdated computers. They're about 7 years old max, which equates to about 20 years old in Apple years. So we need to consider updating our facility, our tools. And as well as the middle school too, because we do offer a technology course at the middle school and the PLTW course. And because of the frameworks, like I said before, we do need to plan for staff professional development and curriculum changes and adoption. The last item is the student support. We did have a few years back a career counseling center. We do not have that anymore, and therefore it is very difficult right now for us to establish internships and mentorships opportunities. So I would like to propose that we bring that back to help our students to connect with industry. And I know Mr. Henrik wanted a implementation plan. So the last 3, I'm going to pass this, if you will. The last 3 slides basically outline a plan proposal from all the information I just said. Thanks, Holly.
Do you want me to move on, Sam, or?
Sure. I mean, if you want to take a look at this, again, some of the things that I've placed on here, to modernize our computer systems. So we need to purchase and deploy the modern computers. I'm estimating it at $200,000 for the 4 classrooms. Right now, the price tag is about $50,000 a classroom. And then you're looking at the expanding the career development course, so we do need to hire 1 for each of the middle schools. My estimates are a little high based on teacher contracts and benefits and so forth too. The third one I do want to stress is to add either a 0.5 teacher for BHS or make it a 1.0 FTE. This is specifically for culinary. Right now we have a 1.6 at Stratford High, but we only have a 1. And as Dr. Graff stated last week, we've had to turn away about 300 students for our culinary program. And that speaks to the fact that we don't have a teacher in the room as well to teach extra courses. And then just, like I said, the CNA program does need another teacher. That's another course that we have to turn away because we're limited in our capacity of allowing the number of students into the pre-nursing program and also somebody to teach the actual course. So we're proposing a teacher to split at least between the 2 schools. This is very involved because that teacher also would be taking our students out to their clinical experiences, which is a requirement prior to going for the testing. And then the career counseling, as I mentioned earlier. The last one is really a segue to the other 2 years because at this point, I'm not an expert in the room with regards to infrastructure upgrades, but from my knowledge that I do have, I think we do need to start with hiring a consultant to assess the infrastructure needs and then plan the upgrades moving forward. And so that's why I put $50,000 in there. That's pretty much the going rate for a consultant these days. And then year 2 would be, again, based off what the assessment would look like. Typically, if we do consider implementing ROTC as another pathway, typically you'd have an initial program set up about $150,000. There are some positives in that the military does help assistance with some of the costs, but just to start it up, we're looking at about $150,000. And then cost for enhancing professional development for our CTU frameworks, that's about $25,000. And then just continuing with the upgrades for BHS. Again, these are just estimates for the next couple years, but those are the budget breakdowns, if you will, as requested. And that's it. if you have any other questions.
Does
And
anybody-
the last are smiling faces of our staff and students.
Mrs. Carol Fabian, Ms. Kennedy, I know you guys had a pretty good discussion on curriculum.
No, I think Mrs. Rosenberg covered all of it, and thank you again for the presentation. And you know, I, as both a board member but as a parent, I fully understand the need of the expansion of these programs and the demands that they have. As I've shared, I have a senior who's finally getting to take culinary her second semester senior year.
Yeah.
So the needs are there.
Thank you.
Unless there's anything to add, I have a couple of questions. Like you said, Ms. Fabian, there's a lot of need in the district for this. And I think obviously the interest is there. How do students get into the program now? Is it just is there a lottery system? Is there seniors first, then juniors, that, you know, how does, but I feel like, you know, all the seniors go to register for, or upcoming seniors will go to register for their courses at similar times.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just literally who hands in their paper first, or computer, you know?
Well, certain courses are offered to 9th and 10th graders, so we allow them to kind of dip their toes in certain pathways. And then by junior year, end of sophomore year, we'd like to get a good understanding of which pathway you're going to commit to. And our most popular ones, as you can see, is the CNA and the culinary, right? But we want our students to explore, so that's why we give them that option. The business pathway is probably the most flexible one in that it doesn't have those criteria and constraints for that industry specifically. So once they dip their toe, they're like, okay, I want to stay in this pathway. However, we do have obviously prerequisites and so forth that they have to meet a certain, criteria, grading criteria, but we don't have that problem in that our kids do meet it. We just can't open enough sections.
Right.
To your point, can I?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm getting?
I know where you're going. And so, so for instance, like with the CNA program, with the medical pathway, there are two half-year courses that students can take sophomore year. And based on that is they move on to the next, it's a prerequisite onto the next CNA course.
Mm-hmm.
But to Ms. Rosenberg's point, we have students who are meeting the criteria to move on to that CNA, to get that CNA certification, but we don't have enough sections, and so kids are getting turned away and losing that opportunity
No,
because
absolutely.
we cannot facilitate the amount of kids who are eligible for it to take it.
The other question is there's obviously more interest in some of the programs, not that all of them aren't important, but there's, like you said, there's very high interest in the culinary programs and the CNA programs. Can more resources from other programs that are less?
We're maxed out.
We're maxed out.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Are
why
we-
I just have to ask to clarify. That's,
And we've been trying to do a really good job at the high schools to, convince them to maybe go into the business field, right? But, I mean, we're at 24. Most of our courses are 24 max.
Yeah.
Basically. That's,
and then given the kind of up and comingness of this, I mean, I feel like this has been around, but there's so much focus on the CTE programs right now. Where do we fall in line with other districts? What are other districts seeing? What are they doing? I mean,
thanks for the question, because Stratford's always been very progressive in our CTA programming. If you recall, Diane Cristiano, my predecessor, or two predecessors ago, she built this from the ground up. She's made it very successful. We were the model district for CTE. And then, she was able to get the Perkins funding and community support to build it. But now the state is prioritizing CTE so much in that, I'll give you an example. We talked about this curriculum where our Perkins funding has been decreased every single year because the state basically is saying to us, well, you have an established program, forget that you're successful, and now we're going to kind of redirect our funding to other districts that may not have an established program yet. And so that's why we keep seeing monies decrease every single year. So we appreciate what we do have for our budget, but at this point, we're looking at changes that need to be make and expansions that need to happen, and we're not gonna fully get it from the programs grant, so we need to find other alternatives.
Thank you.
Mr. Corbett.
So it's successful because you have the funding, but the money. One of my questions, I know a Bunnell student wants to stay a Bunnell student, a Stratford High student wants to stay a Stratford High student. You're talking about 1.3 million here in over 3 years. Would there be any savings in consolidating any of these programs, like consolidating let's say, or consolidating the CNA program into one school, consolidating in the early childhood into another, and having the focus be in one of those schools?
So I'm glad you brought the CNA program up,
Right now,
actually.
you're running concurrent programs at each school.
They are, and that's because both schools have a high need, right? Specific to the CNA program, actually, the CNA program started at Stratford High, and we just were able to get it up and running, if you will, 4 years ago. So we had students bused from Bunnell who were interested in that program. That didn't save us money at all, and we still had the problem of high interest enrollment. So, I mean, we played around with consolidation, but at this point, we have interest, as you saw in the data point, we have interest in both high schools. So we do a really good job of getting kids interested. We just don't have the slots and the sections to offer at both high schools, specifically to Bunnell, because they also have an infrastructure concern.
All right, thank you, Sam.
I actually have a question about that infrastructure concern at Bunnell. I know there's been talks about doing some analysis on renovating Bunnell. Would it be advantageous for us to wait for that, or I don't know if that's a building needs concern or planning? I know we talked about it in the past, so.
Mr. Henry?
So in my opinion, I think some of the needs to expand some of the CT programs can be done within the existing structure with minimal expense that might not be incorporated into a full, if we decided to go ahead with the Bunnell full, the reality is it's gonna be 5, 6, 7 years by the time we go through the whole process and get a shovel in the ground, but we have the need now, and some of my site visits there, some of those changes can be made with shifting some walls around, shifting some space around with minimal impact that I think possibly could be funded through capital improvement plan now, and then just leave those out of the full expansion a little later, or incorporate the rest of it around it. So, but the need is there, so I would say don't wait, because it's a disservice to our students. So.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I got a couple. So, you talked about pathway clusters, you pushed the list up there. Some of those seem to be possible college programs. Why not just let the kids wait and do it when they go to college?
Well, we would like to at least save, because college is expensive,
Yep.
And not all of our students will go straight to college either. So this department specifically, we'd like to at least expose them early to the skills and the experiences, and then,
Grab another mic.
yeah, here it comes.
Microphones only have so many words.
I know.
You can use yours up.
Well, this is much better, actually. I don't have to be so close either. So I apologize. That's the department goal, is to ensure that we have the skill sets embedded. We have the work-based certificates right after they graduate high school, so that they go right into the workforce. And I'll speak to you, the manufacturing pathway, and thank you for the HBI grant, because now that allows us to look at our curriculum, and at the end, they're able to get a certificate to go straight into the workforce if they want to take the time to not have to go to college yet. So that's pretty much the goal here, is we give our kids an option of either getting employed, enrolled, and hopefully enlisted. So that's the big picture.
So what you're saying is, as educators, it's our job to prepare our students for the future, and this is another way to do it?
Well put, sir, yes.
Right. So to the other side, I mean, we, old school, let's focus on reading and arithmetic, all right? I'm gonna just use myself as an example. I took calculus in high school, took physics. I knew when I took those courses, the day that course finished, I was gonna throw that book in the woods and never use it again. Why not cut back some of our educational programs to allow some of those kids who don't wish to go to college? Because the typical path would be, say with math, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, or calculus, whatever. Those kids who aren't gonna do it, why not allow them to maybe skip some of those educational routes and go more directly to a CT type track? Or vice versa.
Well, your foundational skills are still necessary. You still need to apply math in life, and you need to know how to read too to get through any
to a certain level. But,
Right. Which, speaking to your point, is why we want to increase awareness down at the middle school level, so that way we have our students making somewhat of a decision early on, so we don't run into kind of this pigeonhole of which pathway do I go to, and so on. So that's really one of the points that the state did make, is that if you start the awareness early, you'll be able to at least have a more streamlined approach to your pathways. So,
but for some of those programs, why not allow a kid to trade off, for credits, a CT course for an advanced math or science class that would be more advantageous to his or her future.
There's state requirements.
There
are certain
we have
state
graduation requirements also.
by law that you have to meet, and that includes certain, like for instance, 4 years of English,
Yep.
3 years of mathematics. Like, so it doesn't matter what level of science or math that they take, they have to fulfill those amounts of.
But you would,
credits.
to that point too, then you had said the state is looking more significantly at the CTE track. I mean, why not have discussions with the state so that our students are actually learning life skills instead of, like me, taking the books and throwing them in the woods the day you're done.
I agree with you, and I'm happy to go to the state legislative's office to say that, but at this point, like Mrs. Carol Fabian said, we do have to satisfy the graduation requirements on top of offering our students this alternative option.
And it is a process,
Yeah.
And I understand that, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation and this presentation with you for a while, but because I think we need to engage in this process,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we'll find out, no, this isn't the way we want to go, but I think it is, and I think it would be important to look at, just look out of the box and look at some other solutions that would better suit some of our students for the future.
I would just add that we need to meet the, like you're saying, right, we want to reach all of our students. Well, some of our students, yes, they should go that pathway, that's the way they feel, but we shouldn't eliminate or take away from the other students who may need or want that physics class or that calculus class, because that's the pathway they're on. So I think to Ms. Rosenberg's point is we want to expand the options we have, not expand one and take away from the other. We need to be able to service all of our students in the different pathways, whether it's the college pathway or the career pathway. They all need to be met.
No, I agree, and mine was more of an equitable solution than all right, any other questions, comments? So, all right, well, we look forward to hearing from more from you on this in the future, and I thank you for putting this implementation plan together. It's a good starting point, and as I said, if we don't have a starting point, we can't get started. So I think this is a good foot in the door, and I look forward to trying to help you accomplish that goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, let's see. The microphone just got echoey too, I think. Ms. Rickard, we have the state DOE update from Kristen Rickard.
Thank you for taking the time to come out tonight, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we need to take advantage of all of the little gifts we have in Stratford, and we are very lucky to have a representative on the State Board of Ed who can come and share some details with us, so I'm really appreciative of that.
All right, we're on.
Yes, so thank you so much for this opportunity to come and speak about the Connecticut Department of Education's legislative package. As you know, I'm currently seated on the State Board of Education. I'm the only practicing educator on the State Board of Education. I serve on 2 subcommittees, the Accountability and Support Committee and also Legislative Policy Development. So I was involved in vetting the package that's before you, then it was taken to the full state board and voted on to and was approved at our December meeting. I'm not going to go one by one through your packet. There's lots of very interesting things that are there. And again, this is specific to the legislative package coming directly from the Department of Education. But there's several things of note that I thought that I would highlight for you. And then I'm happy to take any questions, either about the specific bills that I'm mentioning or other ones that might pique your interest that I skip over. So first of all, under opportunities for supporting students with disabilities, there's 2 bills, the Act Concerning Funding for Special Education and Section 504, both for interdistrict magnet school students and for open choice students. And my call out for that is because the State Board of Education had a declaratory ruling back in May of 2024 that set the legal precedent that the reasonable costs that are that language is used repetitively throughout legislation, that reasonable costs are actual costs. So this proposed legislative bills for both magnet schools and open choice clarify that and align legislation and law with the declaratory ruling from the State Board of Education in May of 2024. The changes that also come in both of those acts is to change the financial responsibility related to 504 plans from the sending school district to the receiving school. So currently we in Stratford would pay the financial costs of implementing a 504 plan if a student chooses to go to a magnet school or a school through open choice. This legislation would change that funding mechanism so that it becomes the responsibility of the receiving school or district to fund those specific special education needs. On the next page, you will see something that hopefully is welcome news to you as you're heading into budget season, an act concerning a tuition cost schedule for approved private special education programs. So currently, as Ms. Borges, I know has shared many times, it's very difficult to plan your budget, say for 2026, because right now you don't know how much related service costs are going to be for these approved special education programs where we place our students. This particular legislative change would require these special education program providers to communicate base tuition rates and service costs year over year prior to our budget cycle, which would allow us to be able to plan better for tuition expenses. So I'm just going to actually flip so that you understand clearly what the language is. So the proposed language in the bill literally imposes a deadline that the program will communicate a base tuition and cost for services for the subsequent school year to the contracted local or regional board of education no later than December 31st of the current school year. And so the point of that is to help LEAs better do budgeting related to special education costs. Skipping down a few then onto the next page underneath opportunities to support our educators. One thing that'll make our elementary teachers very happy is the act concerning removal of the mandated survey on reading instruction. This has been a long time coming. It is a test that some, but not all, elementary educators are required to take. The reason for the change is that this particular, the requirement to take and pass a reading survey is now embedded into educator preparation programs. And so I believe it's educators who were certified prior to 2012 are the ones that are required to take this. And again, it comes at a huge cost to districts and often diverts other necessary resources away. So part of the justification for doing this specifically from the State Department is that administering and preparing for the reading survey diverts valuable time and resources away from teaching and the professional growth of educators. Districts devote hours and days to administering the survey to teachers who graduated and sought certification prior to 2012, when they could be using this time for the provision of high-quality professional learning for all of their teachers. The funds at the State Department of Education could be better spent on initiatives that directly support high-quality professional learning provided at no cost to teachers and administrators. So that's one for our elementary friends. Underneath that, you'll see that there's an act concerning revisions to the teacher education mentoring or TEAM program. That's related to the fact that the state is phasing out a provisional educator certificate. So currently there's 3 levels of certificates in Connecticut. You have an initial certificate under which you would complete the TEAM program that Ms. DiOrio spoke about before. When you finish the team mentoring program currently, you would then progress to a provisional certificate. You can renew that provisional certificate once and then move on to a professional certificate. Starting July 1st of this current school year, the new legislation removes the provisional certificate, and that certificate's being phased out. The total phase out is set for July of 2025, so this is aligning team language to meet current law with certificates. Underneath opportunities to sustain successful initiatives, you're all familiar with the seal of biliteracy that can be granted to students who passed tests to demonstrate their multiple language skills. An act concerning the establishment of the Connecticut State Seal of Civics Education and Engagement would recognize students in the same way with a seal on their diploma for those students who promote engaged civic activities in their high school experience. And part of that, which I was very excited about, is that the specific criteria is not about passing a test, which I think is fantastic. It's about actually doing things. So for example, the fully drafted bill says that to qualify for the seal, students must meet one or more of the following criteria: successfully complete a minimum of 2 years of history or social studies courses, including at least 1 course in U.S. government or civics, participate in at least 1 civic engagement project, such as community service, participation in student government, or involvement in a civic organization, and or demonstrate proficiency in civics knowledge through a standardized assessment or a portfolio of work that includes essays, projects, or presentations on civic topics. And then that student would be awarded the Seal of Civic Education and Engagement to be affixed to their diploma and noted on their transcript. So that was a very exciting thing. I just had the pleasure of getting to visit with middle schoolers from our state's red, white, and blue schools that were designated as such, and they shared with us their amazing project that they did to completely change all of the signage, and these were 7th and 8th graders, about handicap access and making their building more accessible. And so we had a very robust discussion with the board about how these young students in 7th and 8th grade basically met all of the requirements to earn the seal already. So we're very excited about the possibility of that happening for our high school students. So that's just a brief overview of what's coming from the state. The legislative session starts on June 8th. The next state board meeting is the week after that. And I'll be having regular committee meetings with legislative policy development to track not only these bills, because these are the ones that are important to the Department of Education, but also all other education-related bills. We have a staffer assigned to us that tracks all of those things, so I'm happy to come back in the future in January or again in March. There's no state board meeting in the month of February, but by March we'll have a good idea of where a lot of these bills sit. Just because it's an education bill doesn't mean it starts in the Education Committee. Bills can start in many different committees and then worm their way through the system. So I'm happy to take any questions about these specific things or other than that.
My hand right up.
Your hand right up.
I'll put my hand right up. So first of all, I think it is important to note that I do think it's a step in the right direction to require companies that we contract with and out-of-district placements to tell us by December 31st, and I'll give you an example. Last year, when we reach out to do our budget, one of the out-of-district placements said, yeah, just do a 4% increase. They actually increased their tuition by 14%. And they did not tell us that until the bill came in. In addition, I do think the magnet school will also have an impact. I'll give you another example. Today I received magnet school bill for the services for students with special education needs, and it was well over $100,000. So for us to not have to foot that bill on our own will also be extremely positive. Was there any talk about possibly capping what out-of-district placements or contracted services can charge for students needing those services in public school?
There was not any discussion from the State Department end of that, but so two things. Number one, the rising cost of special education is a topic that the board has discussed many times. The commissioner has a lot of statistics that speak to exactly what you're saying. So not so much in the caps, but there's definitely the acknowledgement that these rising costs that you can't get reimbursed for because there's not a large pot of money there is definitely on the commissioner's mind. And so when the governor asked all the departments for an expansion budget, she, for the Department of Education, submitted an expansion budget that increased the line item for special ed cost reimbursement, so the parts that you're speaking about, for 22% in each of the subsequent years. So a 22% increase and then another 22% increase. So there is absolutely the awareness of that. Language about capping something was not something that came through the department, but as we move through the legislative process, I would imagine that there'll be many opportunities to testify over this particular bill, and certainly the ability of people on the Education Committee to insert amendments to this to keep the good things and perhaps add other things. I know that the commissioner has mentioned multiple times that that specific topic has come up in our Superintendent's Advisory Committee, so it is very much on her mind, and I think we're going to hear a lot more about it as we move through the session.
To keep you in the loop, at the legislative breakfast for the superintendents, the only thing talked about was special education costs. And although I think it's great that they're thinking about funding things better and increasing percentages, until someone gets a handle on what they're allowed to charge, the more money you give us, the higher those prices are going to go up.
And then it goes like this.
Right, so CAUSE, one of the superintendent groups that I am part of, has drafted a letter to the legislators specifically talking about, if you approve this program as a state-approved program, then you also should be mandating the cap in which they're allowed to charge us. And until we start to put some limits on that, it's gonna just be, you give more, they're gonna charge more. And our students need these services. So this is, last year at the legislative breakfast, the only thing that was talked about was reading. This year at all the legislative breakfasts, the only thing that's talked about is special education costs, because it is impacting every single district in this state, and the needs of our students are just increasing. I do think this is a step in the right direction, and I really appreciate you sharing with us. I hope that this board, and I've spoken with Mr. Henrik about this, and we will definitely draft something and maybe get it around to everybody, can help promote the fact that we need more support in controlling these costs. Every district needs it. Whether you're working with CAPS or whether we're working with CAUSE, we're all talking about the same thing. we need to be able to service our students.
And to your point, that was also a hot topic at the CABE conference. The State Board of Education runs our own session at the CABE conference, and at least 4 people were talking about that same exact thing to all of us. So it's out there, and lots of people are discussing it.
And the other piece to it that we would hope would add to this, right? Put a cap on what they can charge, but we also want them to start incentivizing districts by providing us funds, money, and grants to grow our internal program so we can have less students that are out. So there are lots of pieces that, you know, we can advocate for as a board and we can do as a district, and we have a special little voice there right now, so we need to make sure we do that.
Mr. Cormier, your hand on, but yeah, for a second after.
Sorry.
Kristen, thank you so much for your work on the committee and for a great, awesome presentation here. I have a couple questions. My first one is about the act concerning funding for special education for inter-district magnet schools.
Mm-hmm.
So say a parent applies, does the lottery for Discovery Magnet, as an example, but their child has a 504. Is there anything in the legislation where there would be a repercussion for the school if they rejected because of the 504, because they know they're going to eat that cost?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because at also the most recent board meeting, you may have read in the news that there was very public email that got sent around by someone from the Connecticut tech schools, basically very clearly indicating how they use certain systems to not enroll special education students into the Connecticut tech schools. It was a very lengthy email, and it was very disturbing. I'm speaking as an individual right now. It was quite disturbing to see what was sent to the Department of Education and subsequently to the state board. We reviewed all of those materials, and in terms of, is there a consequence? They're being investigated right now. We voted to approve an investigation into the selection process at all of the Connecticut tech schools. So yes, if there over time looks to be an issue with how that's managed with magnet schools, I imagine that the exact same process would happen again, and that there would be consequences.
But it's not part of this.
It's not part of this legislation. No, undergoing an investigation has to be approved by the Board of Education. The department cannot conduct that kind of an investigation without going through the state board.
My second one, the date of December 31st. That's one that's stuck with me since last year when we were doing our budget, on how they slammed Ms. Borges with the 14% when they said, oh, 14%. I remember it just sticks in my head. And the third one, which is not necessarily our board, but the elimination. You're talking about the getting rid of the provisional period. Have you guys talked at all about lowering the licensing fees for the teachers on the lower end of the licensing scale, because the professionals don't pay.
Correct.
The ones on the highest end of the pay scales don't have to pay to renew their licenses, but the ones who make the least amount of money are paying hundreds of dollars for their licenses.
There is a lot of talk about that, not necessarily through the Department of Education legislative package, but certainly the Aspiring Educators Association through CEA and many of our higher institutes of higher education are very concerned about that. We have 2 student members on the State Board of Education, and it's something that they have spoken up about, because their peers who are looking for future thinking about looking at careers, yes, the certification costs and also the testing costs. If you're in a university, to pay to pass all of these tests is cost prohibitive. One of the things that was enacted in legislation and went into effect, I literally want to say it was probably about 3.5 weeks ago. There is a new Connecticut teacher or educator certification board that is reviewing all parts of educator certification, including what you just said about the fees associated with it. They had their first meeting about 3.5 weeks ago, and they're ultimately tasked legislatively over the next year to look at not only cost, but also course requirements, university requirements, all of the kinds of things. How do you get across endorsement? How are there things that came out of the pandemic, emergency certifications, for example, that we utilized during the pandemic that we like and that worked very well for districts and for teachers that we want to keep, therefore we have to change legislation. They will ultimately report to the state board, and then we will move forward from there. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing sort of a mid-year report for them. I imagine it would come in the spring because they just had their first meeting a couple weeks ago.
Great, thank you so much. Glad you're on our side. Glad to have you.
Thank you, absolutely. Definitely on the side of educators and schools.
So I do have a couple questions. Just so I understand the process, now this is, the top of the page says Connecticut State Department of Education legislative package.
Yes.
You also talked about the State Board of Ed. What's the difference between the two entities?
So the State Board of Education oversees all of the functioning of the State Department of Education. So the State Department of Education staff work together to put through suggested proposals that they then took to the State Board's Legislative Policy Committee, vetted those proposals through us. We had a very lengthy meeting, got to ask lots of questions about what they were doing or not doing, or where did this come from, or who else is advocating for the same things, or where might there be pushback. Why did this become a priority? We then vote that out of committee, and then the State Board of Education approved this document at our most recent meeting.
Okay. So how did you get elected to the State Board of Education? How many members are you?
I was appointed to the State Board of Education by the governor. There are 11 seats on the State Board of Education, and there were vacancies to be filled. I was contacted by the governor's office and offered an appointment.
Okay. So each of these, I think, says, a majority of them say this proposal.
Correct.
So what is the likelihood that they will see the floor of the legislature?
So the process is that when all of these bills are entered into the General Assembly, they'll get assigned numbers and then get assigned a home in a committee. So some of these will obviously go directly to the Education Committee. Some of these may go to other committees in the legislature. It then is incumbent on the committees to decide which bills they're going to take up to discuss to then vote out of committee. And so anything that gets voted out of committee then, as you said, sees the light of day on the actual floor of the General Assembly. So this is a long session, which means it starts the January 8th and goes all the way through the first week of June. So there's going to be a lot of time and a lot of bills. There's also going to be a lot of financial things coming through because long sessions are where the state aligns its budget for a 2-year cycle. So all of these are proposals because they will then get assigned a bill number and then they will go through the appropriate committee. So part of what I have then is a tracker. So like I have this gigantic packet with all of this stuff that we then track. Where did the bill go? Who has it? What are the next steps? And so members of the public, board members, myself, you can go and to any committee. If they're going to take up a bill or have a hearing, you would go to the hearing and speak out about certain bills. So for example, in the past, I've spoken many times to Health and Human Services Committee about indoor air quality acts and bills that were put forth by various, through various means. Lots of groups, so CABE, CAS, CEA, all have their own legislative agendas. And so when everybody puts their stuff together, sometimes there's overlap and people will seek to combine things and move language around. And so things will start coming out of committee the closer you get to June.
So you guys draft these proposals, you send them over, they assign a committee. then it's the hope that the committee would take up those bills.
Correct.
And then once the committee makes its recommendation, it's the hope that the chairman would allow it onto the agenda for discussion.
For discussion and vote out of committee, yes,
So it'll
correct.
come out of committee, once it's out of committee, then the legislative chair, the chairman of the House, whatever.
Chairman of the House or the Senate.
He would then need to allow it onto his agenda for discussion.
Correct.
So there's a likelihood, and I'm not saying it won't happen, there's likelihood that none of these will see the light of day.
Sure. I mean, or there's a likelihood that every single one of them
Yeah.
comes out.
I
And
just
so, like,
think-
I've listened many times to the people that represent Stratford, and I know that they're not necessarily on the education committee, but they certainly have a voice with their peers. And so I would urge you to be reaching out once the legislative session begins. If things that are on here are of particular interest to you, make sure that your representatives know that so that they have talking points to share with a colleague wherever the bill ends up. Because, again, some will obviously end up in education, but others will end up in other places.
And I just want to understand the process, so I understand how kind of things work here on the local level, but, so, I guess one more question. If you would see it of value, I think I would you be amenable to us creating your report as a monthly line item on our agenda?
I'd absolutely welcome that. That'd be fine, thank you.
And you know, we included the state legislators there. I think you've been very informative about what you've told us, and a lot of the things that happen in Hartford we don't know, or we'll get, you know, a random email, support this, whatever it is. But I think having you there, having you in Stratford, having you come to our meetings, having the public, who, because these meetings are all publicly recorded and broadcast, understand what's going on and the process. And, you know, might be something like, no, the public wants this, we've been supporting this bill for 4 years, and the chairman won't allow it onto the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps. But
Perhaps.
whatever it may be, so people understand what that process is, what we're advocating for, and what they need to speak up, and even around election time, to ensure that the folks that they're electing represent their desires.
I couldn't agree more. I think public participation at hearings and legislative events is incredibly important, and I would include our students in that. Our high school students are going to be, if they're not going to be eligible to vote next year, you know, very shortly thereafter. I think I encourage anytime an adult who's a voter who goes up to speak, whether it's before the Board of Education or a committee of the General Assembly, bring your children with you. Let them see that. That's a very important process that more people should get involved in.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm really thankful that you came, and I look forward to your next month's report.
You're welcome. Happy to do that. Just a reminder, we don't have a meeting, State Board of Education meeting in February, but I can certainly communicate with Ms. Borges as if I might have had a committee meeting, but not a full meeting, so I'll communicate with her. If I have some updates, I'm happy to share them.
Any information or updates or, you know, background, whatever it might be.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. And actually, if I could just have another minute of your indulgence, Ms. Borges mentioned the great success Stratford has had with reducing chronic absenteeism. We had a full report about statewide chronic absenteeism rates, and specifically the LEAP program at our October meeting. And it was very exciting for me personally to be able to say out loud, that's my school district up there that is showing one of the biggest drops in chronic absenteeism through the LEAP program. So it was wonderful to see that Stratford was on the list of one of the most accomplished districts in the state for reducing chronic absenteeism.
Well, thank you, Ms. Borges.
And we love that you shouted out in here, she's not afraid up there to be like, yep, that's my school, that's my school.
I remind them all the time, I work in a school every single day. This is what I live every single day. Because I'm the only one who does.
Yeah, really.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I will be sharing some letters with you as well from CAUSE, the group that I told you I really enjoy being a part of.
Yep.
That are just, they call them letters of support, and they're letters encouraging these to go further. So I will share them with all of you.
So, Teresa, next month, if you could, add Ms. Rickard's report to our standing agenda. I'll pick a spot, but maybe if you remind me, I'll figure out a spot just so she doesn't want to, doesn't have to stay the whole meeting, so.
When have I ever not?
She stays the whole game. She
Yes.
does anyway.
Okay, good, we'll put you at the end then. We gotta make sure we're still awake to listen to you, because it's important stuff you say. Let's see, so we will move on to Mr. Ruggiero. You have the floor. Ms. Bedell, I know, had some questions, and I have a couple, but sorry to make you wait so long, but you haven't been here in a while, so we gotta.
I don't know if this is on?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, fire away.
Well, in talking about the budget, I'm sorry, does anybody else want to go first
Nope,
before I
it's
do
all you.
this? Because I could, okay. In talking about the budget and savings that Ms. Mangini has brought to us a few times, that there's been energy costs, and you know, we're looking at the solar panels and various items with building needs.
Sure.
And I know that a lot of people have brought to attention the physical heat in the buildings in the months of, I don't know, maybe once it hits 30 degrees, the building is consistently 100 degrees. So, in most of the buildings. So I know what I wanted you to come. I know there are laws and rules and state guidance around what temperatures the buildings need to be and what reasons and things like that. And I was just hoping you could maybe enlighten us in that.
So, heating and air conditioning are two of the worst things
Right.
to have to do, right?
Yeah.
To please everybody, because it'll never happen.
Right.
Just to the school in particular that you were talking about, I spoke with, because if I don't get complaints or work orders that it's hot, I'm obviously not gonna touch it.
Yeah.
Right? So all air conditioning units, the enthalpy settings at 50 degrees, the heat's not gonna come on. So when somebody's constantly hot, I'll send the town over there to figure out. I can't make adjustments to the
Right.
heat,
That's what.
right?
Yeah.
None of my guys. There's a couple schools that we can monitor them, but that's as far as it goes.
Okay.
So I'll call them, and Eli was one of them. And I asked him, just go over there and tell me exactly what the setting's at. I spoke with the principal. He wrote me a whole letter that he doesn't seem to think that there was an issue. He says, I don't see it being super hot. People open windows, it happens. I open my window. When I come into a meeting in here, everybody in here's got a shawl on. I'm gonna put heat in here.
Yeah.
And I'll have my window open in my office because I like it cold. And that goes for the same in a lot of the schools. People open windows because they like it on the cooler side. However, to try and please everybody is really difficult.
I totally understand that.
So you try to find a happy medium. The town's been great with accommodating us when there's a problem. Come out there, they'll take the temperatures, or I'm out there taking a temperature. If somebody says my classroom's 88 degrees, well, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna take my infrared and I'm gonna see what the temperature is.
Yeah.
Again, it's a difficult thing. So as far as gas that we use for that, along with other things, prices of electric, prices of gas, it's through the roof.
Right.
Most of it's delivery costs, as you see even with your own electric at home.
Right.
I wasn't paying that 2 years ago, right? So it's just been, it's very difficult to get the temperatures.
Rich, can you clarify, in the buildings, are there thermostats that principals or somebody else can change the temperature?
So there's not.
What's that what's that weight thing on?
Well, those are what they call a slave. Do they work? Not really. But the problem we have with a lot of schools, Stratford High right now is, the town hired a company out of Lordship, Main Enterprise, to come through there and figure out all the problems we have. So now the town is gonna actually spend the money and have all the software upgraded. So thermostats that are in classrooms will be able to work now. Once the firmware is outdated, nothing works. So they've turned around, hired this company to come in, figure out all the problems we have, and do the firmware update. There's a lot of schools that we need firmware update on. And the town is starting to get to them. Things are they're making changes. So once those are done, but most classrooms, Eli Whitney, there's no thermostats in a classroom. So when I send them out, they're gonna go down to the boiler room, they're gonna see what the settings are. If it's chronic complaining a lot, they'll override it, which is the worst thing.
Yeah.
When they override the system, it's just pumping heat out. There's no end to it, it just keeps going. So then I have to constantly keep calling. It's a tough thing, so it would be nice if we were able to, or if a teacher would be able to make a temperature change in their classroom, would be nice. But it doesn't work that way. And then, like, we want to do upgrades to Benel, we can get rid of that steam system in there and put something in that would be a lot more efficient. That would be great. Because any of the schools that have steam is a nightmare. It's a hard thing.
Are there guidelines though from the state that say we have to be at a certain temperature?
So it used to always be, for OSHA, 68, 78.
Okay.
Any thermostat that you have, even in your house, if it goes off, it goes right back to 68, 78. What's the happy medium for all the schools? It's hard to say.
63 in my house.
I go along with that, I'm 62. But that doesn't happen like for me, it's warm in here.
Yeah.
I have the boilers off. I've had the boilers off here only because I know somebody had mentioned that it's hot in here every time you have a board meeting. I turn the boilers off at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's not as no heat is running in here at all, but it's still warm. Most of the schools are that way.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal actually.
It can be.
Yeah.
But in the wintertime, your boilers are gonna be running. Now, we have all our schools except for 2, which are gonna get new boilers this summer. Chapel and Wilcoxon will get new ones. They're high efficiency boilers. They do burn better than what we had before. They do operate a lot cheaper and better than what we had before in the past. It's hard when the town has to go out and keep getting complaints that people are freezing. And like I always say, just please don't override it.
So what do they keep the buildings set at? Just curious.
Well, they could be anywheres in the 74, 75 range.
That they keep, the town keeps the thermostat set at?
Yeah. Or if I ask them to turn it down, make it cooler, put it at 70.
Yeah.
To me, I think 70 would be great, because there's always gonna be that fluctuation of a couple of degrees over.
Body heat.
You know what I mean?
So, how do you adjust the heat? Is the control in each building that the town?
It's down in the boiler room.
And the
Or some
town
of
has
them,
control over that?
or some of the schools have computers.
Okay. And
Soto has a computer that they can go on.
Is it in a
Make
central
adjustments.
location or is it in the building?
It's in the boiler room.
Of each building?
Yeah,
Okay. And
Typically.
only the town has control over that?
only town has it, yeah.
So, let's just suppose hypothetically, you put the heat at 70 degrees when you leave at night. So when you come in the morning, it's gonna be 70 degrees.
No.
You walk in at 8 AM, the teacher walks in at 70 degrees. Now you throw 30 kids in the classroom with
This is
I don't
true.
remember, I learned about BTUs over at Birdseye when they were having all the issues there. The human body kicks off BTUs. Now that 70-degree room is up to 100 degrees.
Correct.
And the reason why, Mr. Della brought it up to me about a week ago, and I happened to be driving by Eli Whitney. And probably about 3/4 of the windows were open. And I looked at my thermometer on my truck, said it was 43 degrees out. And my first thought was, we are literally throwing money out the window. It wasn't 2 or 3, it wasn't 5 or 6, it was literally 3/4 of the window on the front elevation were open.
So now, again, if it was that hot in the building that everybody had their windows for whatever reason, you would think I would have heard about it.
I feel like this
Right?
conversation
Like
has come up so often.
I'll get a call from the principal or my custodian. They'll say, hey, classroom 125, it feels like it's 80 or 90 degrees in there. Okay, fine. I'll call it down, town will go out, check it out. Again, Rob wrote a nice letter, a nice email to myself and Heather regarding all the windows over there. And like he even said when I spoke to him on the phone, there's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, maybe it's a medical condition, that they like it cooler. Kids like it cooler. They'll open a window. He goes, I'm not gonna tell somebody to open or not open a window.
Well, but, I mean, again, there's gotta be a median, and there should be some kind of a better control that, again, if we set the temperature when we leave at the end of the day
Right.
at 70 degrees, and the teacher walks in the morning at 70 degrees, when those kids get in those classrooms, it's gonna drop up to 80, 85, and one of the solutions is, how do I fix the heat? It's too hot in here. I open the window.
Again.
And again, it was just, it was 43 degrees out, 3/4 of the windows in the front elevation of that building were open. And, you know, we're forced to make these hard budget decisions.
Sure,
and
sure.
It kind of kills me, and, you know, I'll start paying attention to more of the schools to see how many of these windows are really open, but it's always been a concern. That, and I know every time I come in here, it's hot, you know, and the
It
fact
is.
that maybe you turn the heat off at 2 o'clock says, well, you know, maybe we should, you know, turn it off sooner or something like that. You know? But
If it
there's
was up
gotta
to
be
me,
a
I
better
probably
way,
wouldn't
with
put
these
it on.
computer controls and today's modern monitoring systems, there's gotta be a way to control it, and it's for the purposes of saving us money. Like we put the solar
Absolutely.
panels up on the roof to save us electricity. Why wouldn't we put in some computerized controls that we don't have to call the town, that, you know? There's gotta be a better way to monitor the system than
Agreed.
opening up the windows.
And I think the start is with the firmware upgrade on all the systems.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
if I lower the heat in my house by 2 degrees, you can save $60 on a gas bill a month. $50, whatever, you know, whatever it is, out of 110 or whatever it runs that month, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You save quite, if we lowered all the schools, and I know that it's the town doing it, and that's why I'm just bouncing these things off of you. But if we were to lower the schools to 70, 72 even, you know, that's 10 of these buildings, 10 buildings even, leaving out Soto and
Sure.
Stratford High. You know, that's gotta be an awful lot of cost savings there.
I will talk to the town tomorrow, and,
Just curious, I mean,
yeah,
let's-
and I'll let, you know, let yous all know
I
what's
mean,
going on. I don't know how it is in town hall when you go there, and what they keep their temperatures at, because I don't ever really go there, but.
I mean, all these buildings are old, they hold
Sure.
the heat, you know what I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
and they've been the same way forever, but I feel like they're, you know, if they're set at 74, 75 degrees, my mind doesn't even go to the money being thrown out the window, my mind goes to like germ breeding factories, so, I don't know, just.
It also depends on where the thermostat is located. I
Mhm.
mean, the third floor of the building is gonna be much hotter than
Of course.
if it's located in the boiler room, the thermostat is
Absolutely.
gonna be in the basement, which is a lot cooler, so that could be
Well,
affecting
nobody
the
goes down
temperature.
there.
Yeah, so.
Well, again, so the computers are down there.
Mhm.
That's not where you just turn the dial.
Yeah.
up.
Right.
So that's, just so you know, that's not.
I'm just
where-
thinking Eli Whitney is stacked on itself, so if you think about the different layers, one layer could be really hot where another one could be freezing, so that could be part of
Well,
the issue.
one side of a building could be hot and one side of a building
Sure.
could be cold, you know
You
what I
could
mean?
have
So
one
the
room
zone
that's
heating
on.
might be
Right.
something
Another
more.
room, 2 rooms down.
Right.
So these
Are
windows were
comfortable.
open at Eli on both the first and second floor.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The windows at Eli, the day I spoke of, I just looked at the picture, were opened on the first and second floor.
First and second.
Yeah. Some cracked, some, you know, 12 inches, but anyway, it would seem that
No,
there's
it's
gotta
agreed.
be a better way to do it.
Let me talk to the town tomorrow, and I'll let you know what's, you know, what they have to say.
I mean, again, the town's made the investment in the solar panels, you know,
Yeah.
reduce our electricity costs, you would think they would be open to the prospect of saving money on our heating costs as well.
Yeah, you know, I think they are. I don't think they're just reckless with anything.
No, maybe
No,
they're
I don't
windows.
think they are, we're just wondering what the parameters around that are,
Yeah.
and, you know,
So,
I don't think
you
there's a
know,
person, I don't
again-
think there's a person around here that's gonna say their house is set at 74, 75 degrees, so,
Well, I don't know.
maybe.
Mine never will be. But also too, yeah, right? Those are the ones I get calls from constantly. I can't just accommodate that person, and I can't put a heater in the classroom, because the fire marshal will have a fit. In order to keep everybody happy, that's tough.
No, and you're never gonna keep everybody happy, but there's gotta be a little bit more of a happy medium, because 100,
So-
it's.
He's telling me it's not that hot. I'm not in the school all day, but.
It's not that hot because all these windows are open.
Let me talk to the town, I'll get back to you and see what they have to say. We'll see where everything is set, and I wanna hear their version of what they think is gonna be the best temperature.
Appreciate it, thank
Sean,
you.
you're in Eli. Or is it Rob?
Dave.
Dave's Dave. You're in Eli?
Yes.
Is it warm in there?
Certain rooms,
And that's
very warm.
unusual, because I'm usually cold.
And that's like, first thing in the morning, teachers come, open up their windows because it's really hot in the rooms.
Really?
Same with Lord Chip.
Yeah, and it's on the
See,
bottom
so-
floor.
And it's funny, because Rob says the opposite, so, tomorrow I'm gonna go there, tomorrow I'll see.
Nichols?
So Nichols, it depends. In the front where the sun is glaring,
Yep.
everyone's completely hot. But if you were to lower things, the people in the back,
In the back,
where-
where there's
that
no
don't get the sun, they would complain that they're cold.
And I would say
But
in
even
this
if you
building-
came down like 2 degrees,
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
Yeah.
it may,
Kristen, even in this building,
Oh, I
Rich
know.
shuts the heat off and all 4 corner offices are frozen.
right,
So it depends on where you are
Yeah.
in the building.
Sure does.
because This room stays toasty, but if you have a corner office here, you are.
And in the summertime, if you don't have your blinds down, you'll be roasting.
You're roasting,
Even with the air
yes.
conditioning on, but. you know,
I realize there's not much of a happy medium, but every
Sure.
little bit may help
Agreed.
to,
Yeah.
And maybe just putting good blinds on the front of Nichols and, you know, so we can balance, you know,
do that.
there's gotta be a better way. There's always a better way. Agreed.
Thank you, Rich.
Does anybody else have anybody?
Well, Rich, you mentioned town hall, I've been at meetings, I think it's room 213 on the second floor,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
hot.
Yes.
It's hot, same thing.
All the time, every time I'm in there in the wintertime, it's
Yeah.
usually roasting.
All right, well, we appreciate you coming
No
out.
problem.
thank you, Rich.
Yeah, with winter coming upon us in the budget, let's see what we can do. All right, so we're moving on to policies. Proposed policy for second read online courses, P 6172.6. Get there. Page is it?
22.
And Teresa, thank you for putting a table of contents and numbers on our pages. So there were some changes, I think, made, were these changes that these are changes that we made at the last meeting, or these are made at the last meeting? All right, has everybody had a chance to review them? Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
On one specific or,
Yeah, we're going with 6172.6.
no, okay.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, I'll take a motion to approve as a second read. Moved by Mr. Cormier, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Ms. Garfavia?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passed unanimously. Transfer credit, 6172.61. Are there any, we had made some changes again last month, I think we cleaned up maybe some of the language. Is there any, we changed all the legal custody, parents, legal custodians,
There's still one more.
okay?
On the first paragraph, if you count up from the first paragraph 4 up, it says guardian, it should say legal custodian.
In the fourth sentence, oh,
You know, the fourth
Fourth.
sentence up, yeah.
Yeah, fourth sentence up,
on the first paragraph?
yeah.
The
I was
parent
taking the
legal-
easier count.
Okay, gotcha.
I got it.
Thank you.
Right. So we make a motion to change guardian to custodian on page 1. Any other comments? No, so a motion to accept the amendment,
So moved.
moved by Ms. Carol Fabian,
Second.
second by Ms. Bell. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion to approve 6172.61 is amended. Motion by Mr. Dell, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? Ms. Carol Fabian?
The 6153?
6172.61.
No.
Which one?
We're transfer of credits, which is the second one.
172.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, didn't
So
know
we
you were
just,
taking a roll call vote.
I kind of rambled through it, but we just made an amendment to change parent legal guardian to parent legal
Yes.
custodian, and then this is on the amended.
Yes.
Ms. Fabian votes yes. Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Cormier?
Yes.
Mr. Hazel Powers?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes unanimously. Field trip P 6153. Again, we've made some changes. Teresa has made some of the changes where they're already done, parents, legal guardians. Does anybody see any other issues?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I still am questioning the third paragraph there about parent and legal guardian must be offered payment, budget payment plan coordinated with the school PTOs. I thought we took out the must
I know.
because we can't.
We definitely had a discussion about that, and I have the same thing.
I have the same thing on my paper, it was crossed off.
So how do you, is that your only concern with that paragraph?
With that paragraph.
With the
yeah.
must?
Yeah, we changed.
No, with the
must-
school PTA and PTOs, we crossed those out because some schools do not have a PTA or
That's why we said,
PTO.
that's
And
why we
it's,
said other volunteer organizations.
right, but, so, as we discussed in the first read, right, to eliminate that, it's still on there. So I think to Ms. D'Angelo Power's point is that part needs to come
We
out.
removed.
So we were going to remove,
PTA, PTO, so should read,
take it, if you could, please, just take it from the one-day field trip, just to start.
sure, when a field trip is costly, parents, legal custodians must be offered a budget payment plan coordinated with other volunteer support organizations.
No, we took out the word other too, just
Oh,
volunteer support.
Volunteer support organizations.
But when you read it, you just said must, so
Should.
should.
I think
We could change that word. My concern was over the PTA, PTOs.
So then I would look for a motion to amend so that it reads, when a field trip is costly, parent custodian should be offered a budget plan coordinated.
May be
Should be, or
offered.
may be offered a budget plan coordinated with school volunteer.
With volunteer support
or just
organizations.
Just volunteer support.
Volunteer support organizations,
Yes.
and the rest will stay. And is there any other issue with what's in here?
Yeah, there's another parent, the second to last paragraph on that page 27, the last word, it says parent, it should say parent and legal guardian, or legal custodian, sorry.
Do you see that, Teresa?
Second to last paragraph, the last part of it, administration can then in turn communicate the information to the parents, and it should say and legal custodian.
Yes.
I think that's all the ones I saw.
Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion to, Ms. D'Angelo Powers, a motion to amend page 27, the second to last paragraph, and page 27 as well, the third paragraph, the motion would be as stated. Motion to amend, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed unanimously. Motion to approve is amended.
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Cormier. Any discussion? Ms. Carol Fabian,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Bedell.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Cormier.
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers, yes.
D'Angelo Powers. You know, I was just
Been a long
thinking,
time.
I got through
Been a
this
long
and I
time
did
now.
mess up once, and the last
It's
one.
leading,
The chair votes
it's leading
yes.
night, it's leading Maria.
On the record.
Chair votes yes. All right, that deals with all of those. Number 7, selection of superintendent search firm. Everybody received the documentation from Ms. Meredith Broderick. She had come before a subcommittee and We had 3 applicants. The subcommittee felt that she was the most qualified, the most localized, and had the best success rate in plan. So, do you want to add, Mr.?
We interviewed three firms. One firm was national, but the account rep they assigned to us was out of California, and was a bit evasive in some of the questions that we were asking, and that's based on our feelings on that. Another firm, the team's been working together for a couple of years, but they've placed 6 people. And how many are still in the position? 5?
I think they said 5.
5. But they gave it to us as a percentage.
In 2 years, though, it was a long
They
time.
gave it to us as a percentage
That looks much
at
better
first, and
as a
and I went back in to ask, well, how many is that? What's, you know, you can give it as a percentage. And then, but when we dealt with Ms. Broderick, she's been doing this with Kay now for about, 12 years? 12 years. She's placed 50 superintendents in Connecticut, and 38 are still in place in the last 12 or 13 years. And she knows what she's doing. She's local.
She knows the state.
So we came up, of the 3, we came back with much more confidence, and some of the things we requested, which was we're making a decision, we will be there, we're all part of that committee, all 7 of us, but having other players in the room, like having students being able to ask some questions, and seeing how the potential superintendents would interact with the students, how they would interact with the faculty, how they would interact with some of the executive staff, the cabinet. Just seeing that would give us a better idea. She was amenable to that. That was one of our concerns, that she hasn't really done much of that, having that kind of committee, but it would have to be pretty much when there's a meeting going on, it would be a confidentiality agreement. Anybody in that committee would decide. Is that clarified? She was of the 3. All of those of us that sat there and interviewed she was the one.
And one of the groups
Did not show.
backed out of the last.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were, she was willing to be flexible with us. I think that was important for us. And, things like get ties, I think, are just for one thing, but she knows Connecticut, plus a lot about this.
One of the concerns of her original was she didn't seem as flexible, and Ms. Borges has developed a great system that we've hired a number of folks, including our 2 assistant superintendents with, that those involved felt it was very successful and very successful. So we wanted to kind of try and mirror some of those processes, and once I spoke with her about it, she agreed that was probably the best way to do it, and have full board and different subcommittees and a variety of scenarios as we had established, and we'll work through those details. We're not there yet, but those on yours. One of the things she does want to do is meet with the board and get our input. What did she call it? A success profile, I think. Just kind of what we're looking for in superintendent. So that would be one of the next things.
She also gave us she was the one that gave us a projected timeline. So she's looked at, based on showing up now in the next week or 2, a timeline to have us placed within what, by
mid-April.
Mid-April?
Well, end of April.
And she
To
was
start July 1.
And she was familiar with Stratford. I think the closest we got beyond her was, I noticed you have a highly diverse Hispanic population, so we'll make sure we have somebody who speaks Spanish at all the meetings. It's like, that's as close as any of the others got to knowing Stratford. So she's very familiar with Stratford and goings on. So anyway, we thought she was by far and away the top candidate. Somebody like to make a motion to accept the for our search committee.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. O'Brien, any discussion?
Just clarification. Again, just going forward, this process will involve all 7 board members
Yeah, there will be subcommittees.
at all times.
Not at all times, no. There will be
So the
subcommittees.
7 of us are responsible for hiring the superintendent, but not all 7 of us will be privy to all of the different phases, to hear all of the different information, to be able to make the best.
There will be rubric scoring sheets that we did that were the same as we had with assistant superintendents and other. But you know, it's even Mary had felt as well that it was the best way to get honest input was not to have all of us overseeing every step of it. So the next step would be for the personnel committee, myself, and Ms. Porges to sit down with her and define the scope of how we go through the
Mike,
process.
can I just clarify? She gave an example, that was a really nice example, that, you know, say you as a group decided, so obviously she said she's starting with the Board of Ed, Lisa, all of you. Okay, that's who she is starting with. But let's say you decide you want to hear student voice. She basically said if the entire board is staring at a committee of students who are answering questions, they're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to get an authentic back and forth. So you just need to think about, if you're putting things through a process, how can you all feel like you have your voice, because it is your hire, that you are all part of it, but that you also are getting authentic answers from those of us that are going to work directly under this person. Whether it be the cabinet, whether it be your teachers, whether it be your students, you know, whoever's gonna be there, and, you know, you can at times be a pretty intimidating group. So if you want authentic answers, then you need to think about setting up that environment to get those. And if you don't, then that's a different perspective.
And then we get reports from those.
And creating a
committees
scoring
that a lot
rubric
of
that allows us
organizations may or no.
to analyze the information and oversee. I mean, I'm not gonna be a part of all the parts, you know, part of it is involving other parts of our community to take part in the process, but we have the final vote. So, if you wanted to go to them, there's probably no reason why you couldn't go to all the pieces and parts. But the question and answer parts will be done, but there will be board members in every part, and it will be doled out equally, so we all have an equal piece in it.
I just want to make sure that we're all getting the same information, because like, for instance, like you had the 4 organizations to interview to choose which firm to choose, and we only received the one that was decided upon. It would have been nice if we were able to at least see what the others looked like, to see the comparison ourselves. I myself, when I was told, thankfully, by another board member what were the other firms that were interviewed, did a little deep dive of my own to be able to, like, while I agree 100% this is the best choice, it would have been nice to see what the others had to offer instead of just being told, there's the one. So I guess my concern or my request is that we're all given the same information and be able to make those educated decisions.
Okay. Fair enough.
When dates are set for certain things, we all be privy to that, so like you said, we could go to one of the meetings to be out there. If we're not the voting, but.
If we're not participating, we're observing.
Yeah.
But again, that defeats the purpose, and like Heather said, it can be pretty intimidating to have 3 board members, or 2 board members, or 7 board members sitting in front of you.
Or
I don't
could
think
have-
we all need to be sitting there.
Or we could all have it recorded, and if that doesn't violate any.
That also.
You'll have to look at the.
It just can't be
content.
public.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think you guys work as a team. Talk about it, right? It might not be all 7 of you showing up, and you all have jobs and lives and are busy, so I highly doubt you can all show up at once. Just, you know, just be mindful of the groups you put together.
Are we
Figure that out.
can I ask a question? Are we talking about the committees that are coming up with the plan of what this position looks like now? Or are we talking about the actual interviews of the candidates?
There's a number of process. There's.
Because at the point of the interviews with the candidates, I think, I don't plan on not being at every one.
And when I sat in on the assistant superintendent interviews, and we've had a full panel of people, it was intimidating. Someone coming from outside, it's intimidating having all those people. So think it would be the same if the board was there. Wasn't like any different.
I'm not concerned about the candidates, right? I'm concerned about you getting accurate information and ratings back from your students and your staff. I think the candidates need to be able to handle the pressure of the board. That's who they're working for, right? Whoever you hire has to work for you.
Yeah, but it comes that there will hopefully be a lot of applicants for the position. So to weed it out, to get it in front of the board, to get it down to 5 or 3 or whatever number we pick going forward, there has to be some steps to get there. And it's exhaustive. That kind of process is exhaustive. And yes, it is our one and only responsibility and employee. But we need to be presented with a slate of candidates, not reviewing everything and sitting in. We don't need to be involved in all of the data gathering and that kind of stuff.
That's what you guys will hash out in January
Right.
when you meet with her, right? She's meeting with you to plan this process, and these are great conversations, but these are the ones you're gonna have with her, right? You've now selected something to guide you, and now you can all figure out the pieces that mean the most to you, right? And she can help bring you guys together to make that decision. I mean, my hope and desire is that when it comes to an end, that the 7 of you agree on a candidate, and that we welcome somebody in who we all really want.
So we've got 2 prime examples of people who have gone through the process. Would you like to elaborate on maybe some of your past experiences and your last experience with your interview processes?
Honestly, that was the most thorough process I've ever been through. Did I answer too quickly? No, but I thought.
Tell us how you really feel.
I thought the people you involved, there was a number of people involved. I thought the different tasks and processes were fantastic. As a candidate, it allowed me to get to know the district just as much as it allowed you to get to know me. So I was able to work out that I thought I was a good fit as well. So I think to duplicate that on a different level, maybe for the superintendent, would be your best path.
We still have students come up with us.
You had gone through 2 different interviews. I mean, did you see a difference between the 2?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't make it to the second part of the first time around, but I mean, just even being an inside person in the district, it was really neat to go to the different buildings, to hear from the students. It gave a whole different perspective.
And so that is the process that I'm looking to duplicate with this.
And it was an excellent process. I was part of that first group when you came in. So what, 15 of us? A very diverse group made up of staff, community members, and then you had a whole different group for the second interview. It just worked out well.
We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, even with the new hire of the director of instructional technology. Even candidates we did not select have reached out and sent emails and said that process made them better.
And not for nothing, these 2 over here, we had final say over whether they hired.
You know.
No, but I'm just saying, the thought is the superintendent is our only hire. That's not the case. Based on state statute, the board has final say over all hires in the town of Stratford Board of Ed. So we do, that's why we have our personnel committee, that's why we take a vote on it, because we do. So we could have said no. I mean, you guys passed with, glowing recommendations, and we would have been crazy to say no, but we could have said no, because we didn't think she could have promoted you to the ends of the earth, but we didn't feel you were the right guy, so.
Really glad you didn't do that.
No, I know, but it was because it was such a good and thorough process, and we were, although we weren't involved with the entire process, we did get to look at the scoring and some of those things, so we do.
And I think you guys are wonderful, and I tell you all the time how much I appreciate all of you, but what's more important is that your school district felt like they hired them. And it is important for you to understand that their internal value matters, right? Yeah, you may have that final say, but I would never want to be like, I did this is my hire. No, it's the district's hire, right? We all work together. We are one Stratford unit that has to be able to all work together in that fashion, and I think it's vitally important, and I love it. I love when I walk through Bunnell and they're like, hey, we interviewed them. We really like that.
your kids need to be involved, your staff needs to be involved, you need to be involved. You know, we have to come together as a group, and that's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard or challenging, but it's vitally important. And trust me when I tell you that it's more important that people feel like they have a voice and an understanding than just an I did this. It's not about that.
It would behoove us not to take advantage of the wide array of diversity and opinions and experiences we have in the district to help guide us through the process.
You have an amazing district here.
So I look for a motion to accept the selection of Cade Mary Broderick for our superintendent search firm. Moved by Mr. Cormier, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. We have looked at the residency reports already. There were no new appointments, resignations under committees. I think, unless you guys want to elaborate a little more, curriculum committee?
I mean, everything we kind of talked about, I think just the sentiment was that we want to have ongoing discussions about this, and maybe presenting something like this to them next month would be helpful for the curriculum committee to see. I don't think this was sent to them yet, right?
Nope.
So we can maybe just follow up with this. I don't know if we can yet, or do you want to prefer to wait a little while?
Full steam ahead. Anything else? Finance committee.
Just met before this meeting, went over the reports for the month of November, and looking forward to budget season kicking off very, very soon.
School planning did not meet, but we will be meeting in January. We'll start discussions regarding the capital improvement plan. I think that's about all we have on our agenda moving forward for the short term. Liaison Town BOE Committee did not meet. Policy review.
But that doesn't mean the members didn't meet. Members do so much work away from the meeting that brings it to the meeting.
Yes. There are a number of subcommittees within the policy review committee who are working through that. We are also, I think as Ms. Porteous had mentioned, we are in the process in the AI task force of drafting some policies through there, which once the task force develops them, we will send them over to the policy committee for review, and then over to the board for a full vote. Mr. Kennedy did not meet. Athletic review.
January 16th is the next meeting.
Bylaw committee, we met. We got about halfway through the final draft. I think one more meeting, we should be able to wrap it up and get something over to the board. Naming committee did not meet. Personnel committee did not meet. Cade, Carol Fabian?
No.
No. CES?
Just that they had their legislative breakfast this month as well, so they put the conversation all over. Yeah.
Okay. Town building needs, no information on there. Any other good of the order?
Yep, just really quickly, the students, Jenna from Bunnell had talked about ELF a couple of times, the show ELF that Bunnell stage put on. It was phenomenal. The kids really enjoyed it. Just throwing it out there that it was, go see the place.
Well, I have to mention, I gave blood at Stratford High on Friday, and normally at those blood banks, adults are the ones that check in and do all that stuff, and the students did it, and they did a great job. Give them credit for running the blood bank. I think they do it annually.
And congratulations to the Bunnell Bulldogs on their victory on Thanksgiving. That was a rainy game. It was very cold, but congratulations.
And they played in the rain. Which is
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
And you won.
Yes.
Yeah,
Congratulations surviving.
Lisa went. There was there.
So, and then I just want to thank Ms. Record for coming out. I look forward to hearing her reports moving forward. And I know Ms. Porteous, you've given this incident data report, which I look forward the information and,
You'll get those monthly now.
maybe at your next meeting, if you feel comfortable giving a report, or unless they're just for informational purposes.
Why don't you guys look at those, and then feel free to let me know if you'd like me to give a report, because I get a little concerned that sometimes they can be identifiable, because there's some with low numbers. We just need to be.
So we can just leave them for informational purposes only?
Yep, they are, per legislation, the Board of Education is required to do those monthly, you will now get them monthly.
Awesome, thank you. For motion to adjourn?
Second.
Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Bell, any discussion? No discussion.